Matt Sheffer. I noticed that Scientology has a creed, similar to how Christian churches have creeds they recite in their worship services. Who came up with the Scientology creed? When? Was it LRH? Or was it an addition added to Scientology after he died? Are Scientologists expected to memorize or learn this creed the way some Christian churches do theirs? Yes, the Church of Scientology does have a creed, and in fact, I will read the whole thing to you in just a moment. The Creed of the Church of Scientology was written in 1954 when Scientology was made into a religion and was going for tax-exempt status. This is one of the things that you have to have, is a checklist of items that you have to show that you are of your organization is of a religious nature, and having a creed is one of those points. So that's why there is a creed for the church. I am positive that if that was not an IRS requirement, there wouldn't be one, because Scientologists do not pay attention to or do anything really more than give lip service to this creed. It is not something that is well known or talked about within Scientology, although it's hung up on walls. It's around, and it is for when they started doing the Sunday services. I think in the year 2000 is when that started. The creed was put out there on video, and they read it now as part of the Sunday service. So that was the first time that I ever saw, in the 15 years I'd been doing Scientology up until that point. That was the first time I ever saw anybody talking about the creed of the church, and that was the only place it was ever brought up. Of course, if you are talking with somebody outside the church, you might present this as something that this is what we believe, or this is how we act, or this is what we think would be the best of all possible worlds, is represented in the words of this creed. So we might use it that way to talk to people outside of Scientology, but we never referred to it in the church. Ministers in training in Scientology, there's a course you do called the Minister's Course, and the creed is prominently on it, and I believe you memorize the creed as a drill or exercise as part of the Minister's Course. So that would probably be the place where most Scientologists would see it, become familiar with it, and that's only for, of course, those guys who are becoming ministers, and you have to be an auditor to become a minister, and it's pretty rare. It's not a common thing for Scientologists to become Scientology ministers. All right, so here is the Creed of the Church of Scientology, and I thought I would read it to you guys because I thought you would appreciate the irony and straight-up hypocrisy that is represented by these words compared to how Scientologists actually operate. It's almost the case, it's almost true that if you were to take every one of these lines and make it the opposite, that's pretty much how Scientology would actually be dealing with these things. But here's what they say. We of the church believe that all men of whatever race, color, or creed were created with equal rights. That all men have inalienable rights to their own religious practices and their performance. That all men have inalienable rights to their own lives. That all men have inalienable rights to their sanity. That all men have inalienable rights to their own defense. That all men have inalienable rights to conceive, choose, assist, or support their own organizations, churches, and governments, so long as that's Scientology. That all men have inalienable rights to think freely, to talk freely, to write freely their own opinions, and to counter or utter or write upon the opinions of others. Again, so long as everything you say or write is in full agreement with everything that L. Ron Hubbard or David Miscavige have ever said or written. That all men have inalienable rights to the creation of their own kind. That the souls of men have the rights of men. That the study of the mind and the healing of mentally caused ills should not be alienated from religion or condoned in non-religious fields. And that no agency less than God has the power to suspend or set aside these rights overtly or covertly. And of course, at this point, Hubbard hadn't yet said that Jesus is just an implant and there's really no such thing as God. but that wasn't too far along after writing this. And we of the church believe that man is basically good, that he is seeking to survive, that his survival depends upon himself and upon his fellows and his attainment of brotherhood with the universe. Not quite sure how disconnection fits in with that whole brotherhood of the universe thing, and we of the church believe that the laws of God forbid man to destroy his own kind, to destroy the sanity of another, unless, of course, you're auditing them, to destroy or enslave another's soul, to destroy or reduce the survival of one's companions or one's groups. And we of the church believe that the spirit can be saved and that the spirit alone may save or heal the body. So you see an awful lot reflected in here that Scientologists actually don't really do a whole lot with or do the exact opposite of. But I will say that despite the fact that they do all these things that are completely opposite to what they proclaim to believe, they still believe that that's what they're doing. And that's the insanity of Scientology. So, thought that might be a nice exercise to walk through that. There you go.